Our speaker, our speaker today needs no real introduction, and I think he's going to tell us a very interesting story of how somebody who grew up in this country ended up spending over 40 years of his adult life in Japan. And I'll just pass it over to Jack.
Thank you, everybody, for coming today. I'm very glad to have this opportunity. First, I want to thank Bill Holloway for putting the video together in such a fine way, from all different kinds of photographs and newspaper clippings, and you'd be surprised what he can do. But it was great, and I appreciate it very much. Thank you, Bill. Let's start in 1946 in Delaware, Ohio, where I am singing with everybody the Ohio Wesleyan alma mater at my graduation. Ohio Wesleyan, sweetly and strong, rises our hymn of praise for thee alone. Heaven re-echoes it, loud let it ring. Ohio Wesleyan, loyal hearts sing. Since I had decided to follow my dad as a Methodist minister, the next scene is at Yale Divinity School. It's my second year at exam time before the Christmas break. I was quite tired and quite nervous when I noticed an article on the back cover of Motive magazine. Here is an opportunity to work as an English teacher in a mission school in Japan for 3 years. It's a call from the Japanese Christian Church, and the Methodist Board of Missions is sponsoring it. I turned to my roommate and said in jest, "Hey, Bill, here's our chance to escape from these tough exams. We can go to Japan to teach." But later, I gave it some prayerful thought. To be a good minister, I needed far more experience in the real world. Also, here was a chance to patch up relations with Japanese young people who had been my wartime enemies. After discussing it with my parents, I decided to apply and was accepted. That summer, 50 young college graduates from all over the United States gathered at a school in New York City for a 6-week training session. We were called J3s, Japan for 3 years. We studied 4 subjects: the Japanese language, how to teach English without knowing Japanese, Japanese history and culture, and the Christian work in Japan. In early September, we also enjoyed getting to know each other. In early September in San Francisco, I boarded the freighter SS Tradewind with 8 other J3s for a 2-week trip across the Pacific. There's the group that were on the ship with me. At this time, I knew that my work assignment was not as an English teacher, but to help reestablish a Christian program that before the war had been the Wesley Foundation in Tokyo. The old building had been destroyed, but the plot of land was still there, and the mission board had sent a small prefab house, and I moved there when it was completed. A modest student center building was also built. A program of study groups, service projects, and recreation was open to any college-age students in Tokyo who wanted to come. We called it SCF, Student Christian Fellowship. At the peak, I guess there were 80 student members. We were able to find volunteer teachers for such classes as Bible study class, an outreach class that planned service projects, a social responsibility class, and a home economics class. There was a choral group open to all, and on Saturdays, there was time for recreation. Let me tell about one of the service projects. It was to help a Japanese pastor, Reverend Nakayama, in his work in the underground passageways in Ueno Station in Tokyo. It was still quite soon after World War II. Many homeless people were living in these passageways. They interlace Ueno Station's underground. Reverend Nakayama visited them to help where he could. He brought large containers of bread and milk, which he distributed. The homeless would gather around, and he would bring a message of encouragement and hope from the Bible. He asked our group, the SCF, to help sometimes. So a group of us would accompany him and help with the distribution of the food. After we got better acquainted, he asked me to give a message once. He interpreted. I struggled to prepare it. How can I help to lift these folks out of their hopeless mood? My theme was how Jesus' love influenced my life. I hope there were some good results. Of great personal importance to me, one of the students in the SCF was Hatsumi Ishii. She's in the middle here handing out some material. Hatsumi eventually became my wife. Here she is with her parents in Nagano, where they lived. It was in the wintertime. About the same time that I returned to America, Hatsumi received a full scholarship to National College for Christian Workers, a small college in Kansas City, Missouri. I went back to my third year at Yale Divinity School, and Hatsumi and I met several times in America. To make a long story short, in the summer of 1953, we were married in my father's church in Saranac Lake, New York. Our honeymoon was at the Moss family log house on Scroon Lake, New York. Hatsumi and I strongly felt that we wanted to be career workers in Japan under the United Methodist Board of Missions. So, after another year of language study for me at the Yale School of Japanese Language, here I am with my teacher, Mrs. Okada, we returned to Japan with our first baby, Patricia Nozomi, by Japanese passenger ship from Seattle. This was in 1955. In Tokyo, my language study continued for another year. And during that time, Hatsumi worked for an organization that found homes for so-called half children, half Japanese, half American. These children had been born to Japanese women who had been living with American GIs, but they could not keep their babies. Hatsumi helped them to find a home. Our second child, Carolyn Megumi, was born in Tokyo during our year there. And this is our family in 1967. For our future work, we were called to Niigata on the Japan seacoast, going by train up through the central part of the main island to the coastal area on the Japan Sea. Some people call it the backside of Japan, but we didn't. The Niigata region was known as a place with cloudy, rainy, snowy weather. Look at that, how much snow they had. But there was this huge plain with rice paddies that produced the most and the best rice in Japan. The city of Niigata, where we lived, is the capital of the state or prefecture, the center of government, education, business, and culture. The mouth of a large river forms a harbor for fishing boats that brought us delicious fresh fish from the Japan Sea. Our house was at the edge of the city near the ocean. We were warmly welcomed into the Christian community in Niigata Prefecture. Japan has a united church, which includes Methodists. So our denomination there was the United Church of Christ in Japan. The Christian work in that region grew out of evangelism that began in 1875. So when we came, there were already 16 United churches in the district, like this one. Each had a Japanese pastor. This is in one of the city churches at communion time. And this is part of the congregation that Sunday. A district committee decided our work. Hatsumi and I were both on the district youth committee, which carried out summer camps and a youth caravan that visited all 16 churches once a year. The caravan team included 2 young people, a pastor, and myself. We traveled over dusty or muddy roads by our car to each church. We put on an afternoon program for children who gathered in large numbers, and an evening program, often with slides or a film for people in the community. Hatsumi also helped with women's groups in the churches. Among other things, encouraging more discussion in their meetings. My other work in the churches included English Bible classes, preaching when invited, and helping pastors with rituals such as baptism and communion. Hatsumi and I each had other work not directly related to the churches. For example, Niigata helped to organize a YWCA group that met in our roomie house. In weekly classes, the YW studied the Bible and Japan's new peace constitution. They promoted the volunteer idea in their community service projects. So much so that the city welfare department asked the YW to help them organize a city-wide volunteer bureau. Hatsumi was also asked to become a member of the prefecture's adult education committee. So she was invited to speak to civic groups and to write newspaper articles suggesting ways to deal with problems that people were facing. As for me, for 34 years, I taught a course in Niigata University in their English teacher training department. The course was on the literature of the Bible. It was in English, New Testament 1 year, Old Testament the next. The students were training to be English teachers in the public schools. Their English was good. Instead of exams, I asked them to write papers in English on a variety of questions that I would supply. For example, what can we learn from the creation story in Genesis? Or, which one of these parables of Jesus appealed to you most, and why? Generally, their answers were thoughtful and positive. Around 1960, through circumstances that seemed providential, our church district was able to purchase an old abandoned rest house on the slopes of Mount Myoko in the southern part of Niigata Prefecture. So the district had a nice place for summer camps and winter ski camps. Hatsumi and I both helped with the purchase and programs at that center. Besides the building, there was an outdoor worship center, a place for campfires, and a large field for sports. The retreat center's name was Kozanso, meaning looking to the hills. From Psalm 121, I will lift up my eyes unto the hills. The spirit of this Kozanso retreat center is shown in a little poem, a summer breeze, a hymn of praise, the worship circle among the birches, cheers for a champion volleyball team, prayerful decisions at the campfire, a winter wonderland, a graceful turn on the ski slopes, toasted rice cakes around a warm stove, a searching question raised and earnestly answered. This is what Kozanso means to us. Now, let me tell you about the coming of our private high school, whose education was based on Christian principles. There are actually over 100 Protestant mission schools in Japan. They were started mostly in the late 19th century by missionaries and Japanese Christians. Some have become prominent private universities in Japan, but none of them were in the Niigata region. So Christians in Niigata wished for such a school as a bridge between the church and Japanese society. Well, along about 1964, we heard that the Christian Schools Committee was thinking about helping to establish a new Christian school somewhere. Very quickly, we formed the Niigata School Establishment Committee. It was made up of pastors from 3 city churches, 6 prominent laymen, and Hatsumi and myself. Our committee immediately sent members to see the mayor of Niigata and the governor of Niigata Prefecture. Happily, they both thought a private senior high school would be most welcome, and that land for such a school could be provided free. What an encouragement that was. So our committee made a concrete plan for a co-ed senior high of 600 students. An experienced educator in Tokyo, Reverend Toshio Ota, responded to our appeal to become the school's pioneer principal. He joined us and decided the name for the school, Keiwa. It's the Japanese way of saying love God and love your neighbor. A committee of Christian educators took us under their wing. There were many hurdles along the way, but Keiwa Gakuen High School opened its doors in the spring of 1968. Hatsumi and I were asked to be on the staff of the school. Hatsumi, as English teacher, the person in charge of a service club, and of exchange students, and the advisor to students about their future. I also taught English and was vice principal under Reverend Ota. I was in charge of fundraising and the building program. Not exactly my specialty, but I did my best. Fundraising had 4 equal pillars. Niigata fundraising, All Japan, German church fundraising, and USA-Canada fundraising. Prominent church leaders helped with each pillar. The building program began with the bare necessities for the first year and increased each year as the need arose. We have to enlarge the classroom building. We need a new dormitory, a gym, athletic field. Each loomed up quickly to make my work quite a challenge. But there was lots of open pocketbooks and hands ready to help. Besides the usual high school curriculum required by the Ministry of Education, and besides the usual sports activities, Keiwa had some important, unique features. A daily 20-minute chapel service. Oh, well, this is what the campus looks like now, with the main classroom building there in the middle. A 20-minute chapel service held for many years in the gymnasium. We had speakers from many places. This lady was from China and spoke to our students. Introduction to the Bible was another special feature. A course taught to the freshman class with advanced elective courses in the Bible. A work period once a week for each homeroom. A project to improve the campus or to work in our vegetable garden. Another special feature was a 2-day festival in June with student leadership to provide indoor and outdoor activities such as the school band, choral singing, dramatics, costumed dancing, and races. It was held rain or shine. Another special feature of the school were the fall retreat programs, where usually each homeroom took off to visit some social work center for people with some kind of difficulty. The purpose was to learn from the leaders of the home and to bring some youthful cheer to them from our students. Some senior retreats have visited Hiroshima, which you'll recognize from this picture. Over time, incoming freshmen to Keiwa gradually matured to a more thoughtful and outreaching senior class. Keiwa's English language school song speaks to the heart of its purpose. Sandy slope, pine woods, ocean's blue horizon. Keiwa High School spirit warmed by friendships true. Help us grow in mind and heart, God's high purpose find. Give us wisdom, strength, and joy to serve our neighbor's need. Our principal, Reverend Ota, retired after 16 years, and I was asked to be interim principal for a while. At that time, something very unusual happened. One day, the mayor of a nearby city, the city of Shibata, he came to visit me, and he said, "We've heard about your unique school and are wondering if you wouldn't like to establish a 4-year liberal arts college in my city." A 4-year liberal arts college. I was quite flabbergasted. And I replied, "Well, I'm sure we would like to do that, but all of our resources are used up just to keep the high school going." The mayor said, "Well, let me see what I can do." In a couple of weeks, he came back with this proposal. "I have visited the governor and the mayor of a neighboring town, and if you can find a good staff for such a college, we are prepared to provide the land and 9/10 of the original building costs. No strings attached." Wow. A treasure was being offered to us on a silver platter. So I took his offer to our board of directors. They wanted very much to establish a college, but raising even 1/10 of the building cost was a huge challenge. Fortunately, one capable board member said he would head up the fundraising. Mr. Kitagaki, a professor at Doshisha University in Kyoto, was willing to become the pioneer president of a new Keiwa college. This is what it looks like now. Those are a flock of geese that happened to be in the field when the picture was taken. After many ups and downs, Keiwa College opened its doors in 1991. This is the opening ceremony with one of the new students giving a short thank you speech. That was only 3 years before our retirement, but I did teach a course in English literature in the college. Recently, in 2017, Hatsumi and I were invited to attend the 50th anniversary of Keiwa High School and the 25th anniversary of Keiwa College. Now, let me tell you about 2 events during our work in Japan that may be of special interest. The first is about Hatsumi's unusual experience as an interpreter for Korean people living in Japan. Some background is necessary. Since 1910, Korea had been a colony of Japan until the end of World War II. During that time, many Koreans were enticed or forced to come to Japan to do menial jobs. During the war, some Korean women were forced into prostitution by the Japanese military. The Koreans often faced job discrimination and prejudice. After a few years after we moved to Niigata, the North Korean government invited Koreans to living in Japan to come to North Korea to settle in an area that they wanted to develop. So here was a chance for unhappy Koreans in Japan to go into farming in North Korea. Ships would come to pick them up to Niigata, where we lived. The Japanese government was willing, but wanted to be sure that each Korean was going to North Korea of their own free will, not forced by their family. So they asked the International Red Cross in Geneva to send representatives to Niigata to question each adult Korean who had gathered to catch the boats. They needed interpreters for these interviews. The Koreans knew Japanese well, so the interviews involved English and Japanese. Hatsumi, with her skill in English, became one of the interpreters. There were many, many interviews. Actually, very few Koreans said they really didn't want to go. And when they did say so, it created great tension in their family and involved careful diplomacy to allow them to stay in Japan. When the first North Korean ship came to pick up the Koreans, Hatsumi and I went to the port to see them off. Hatsumi's work helped to assure that they really wanted to go. The second event of special interest occurred at our Keiwa High School. It had to do with our use of the Japanese flag, the large red sun on a white border. The problem came up when Reverend Oda, after 16 years, retired as principal, and it happened that I was principal at the time. Reverend Oda had insisted that on special occasions, we would decorate the back wall of the stage with a large Japanese flag along with the Keiwa flag. But there was opposition to this on the part of many staff members. The reason was that during the period of Japanese imperialism, the suppressed countries like Korea and China saw that flag as a symbol of Japanese oppression. They suffered under it. So to many thoughtful members of our Keiwa staff, it was a very tainted symbol. Some staff members did support the use of the flag. So now what to do about it? It was decided to have 2 staff gatherings. At one of them, Reverend Ota came and explained why he insisted on this flag's use. He thought the flag could have a good meaning in the new post-war democratic Japan. At the second staff meeting, a Japanese pastor, Reverend Tsunoda, came to Keiwa and spoke against the use of the flag. He thought it was tainted. Well, some kind of decision had to be made. I don't remember where the idea came from. It was a compromise that everyone could live with. We no longer decorated with the Japanese flag on the wall, only the Keiwa flag. But a special stand was put up in the lobby of the school with 3 flags on it. The Keiwa flag, the Japanese flag, and one more, the flag of the United Nations. The addition of the UN flag was very important. It meant that as a school, we were promoting the new Japan's peaceful role in the family of nations. Everybody could live with that. Well, I think my time is running short. In our work, Hatsumi and I made plenty of mistakes. But all in all, as with you, I'm sure, we found something very special. That beginning with our parents and our teachers, we felt an encouraging wind at our backs, both human and divine. The human aspect could be traced rather easily, but we also felt a divine wind. There was a loving energy with a capital E at work, a loving energy that guided and sustained us in our efforts. The energy made important surprise connections that we could not possibly account for. These connections enabled the plan to move forward through the fog of uncertainties. It clearly seemed that Keiwa was meant to be. Those encouraging and enabling winds were very much in our thoughts as we reminisced about the good old days in Japan. End of story.